She slammed her car door so hard the whole street turned silent. "Get that trash off my lawn before I call the cops," she yelled, pointing a trembling finger at my son's white cane lying on the grass. He was just trying to find the sidewalk. My boy, 9 years old, completely blind since birth, froze. He didn't even know who she was yelling at. I stepped forward, slow and steady, hands calm by my side. "Ma'am, he's blind. He dropped his cane." "I don't care if he's blind or purple," she snapped, eyes wide and wild. "This is an HOA neighborhood and I won't have beggars crawling around here." My fists clenched, but I didn't move. Not yet. Not until she reached into her purse and pulled out a silver pistol. "Get off this property or I swear—" "You're pointing a gun at a blind child," I said low, barely above a whisper. "He shouldn't be here. This is private land," she barked. "No," I replied, voice flat. "This is my land." She blinked. "Excuse me? My name's Elijah Carter. You'll want to remember that, because when this hits court, and it will, it won't just be your gun shaking." That's when her phone buzzed. She smirked and lifted it up like a trophy. "Don't worry, the cops are on their way. You'll be gone in minutes." My son was trembling behind me. She didn't care. Her eyes were on me, waiting for me to beg or run. But I didn't flinch, because what she didn't know was that I am the chief prosecutor for this entire county. And pulling a weapon on my blind son, she just made the worst legal mistake of her life. She stood in the middle of my driveway, like she owned it, pacing now, gun still clutched tight. "You think I'm scared of some county worker?" she muttered loud enough for the neighbors to hear. A few blinds shifted in nearby windows, people peeking, but no one stepped out. The sirens wailed in the distance. She smiled, smug and confident. "Told you. Your little stunt's over." I crouched down next to my son, shielding him without making it obvious. "Stay calm, buddy. Just breathe, okay?" He nodded, clutching my arm. I could feel his little heart racing. When the squad car finally pulled up, 2 officers stepped out. Young, unsure, confused. She ran toward them, waving her phone like a flag. "Officers, that man is trespassing. He threatened me and brought dangerous kid onto my lawn." One cop moved toward me slowly. "Sir, we got a call." "She's lying," I said, pulling my badge from my inside pocket. "Elijah Carter, Chief Prosecutor, County Badge number 2437. The second cop paused. The first one stopped mid-step. Karen's smile dropped. "She pulled a loaded gun on a child," I continued. "She crossed onto my property. And I have 3 security cameras watching from that corner, that roof, and that tree." The silence was deafening. Karen's face turned pale. "He's faking it. That kid's not blind. This is staged. You people are trying to trap me." My son stood up slowly, holding his cane. "I can't even see what you look like," he whispered. That line, it cracked through the air like thunder. The younger cop turned to Karen. "Ma'am, we need you to put the weapon down, now." She started backing up, hands shaking. "You're making a mistake. I'm the head of the HOA. I make the rules here." I stepped forward just once. "You just broke the biggest one." Her hands dropped, gun clinking on the pavement. And in that moment, everything shifted. But this wasn't over, because the badge scared her, but the files in my office, those would destroy her. They cuffed her right there, but she didn't stop screaming. "You people have no idea who you're messing with. I've run this neighborhood for 6 years. I'll have you evicted by tomorrow." The cops exchanged a look. One of them muttered, "Yeah, good luck with that," as he read her rights. I stayed silent, watching her squirm. Not because I enjoyed it, but because this was only the beginning. People like her don't go down with just handcuffs. They double down. They twist. They dig. As she was placed in the back of the squad car, I caught her muttering into her smartwatch. It wasn't a call. It was a recording. She was building her story, twisting the narrative already. I've dealt with people like her in court, entitled, manipulative and always one step behind the truth. Back inside, I called my assistant DA. "Start pulling everything we've got on a Carol Winters. She's the head of the Meadowbrook HOA." He whistled low. "That name's familiar. Give me a day." But I didn't need a day. I already knew what I'd find: harassment reports, fines issued without votes, property line disputes buried under red tape. This woman had a trail longer than she could cover, and she wasn't working alone. That night, while tucking in my son, I noticed something slipped under our front door. Plain envelope with no return address. Inside, a printed HOA violation. Your presence is a disruption to the peace and aesthetic of this community. Immediate relocation advised. No name, no signature. Just a line at the bottom. Consider. This your first and final warning. I looked up at the door, no footsteps, no camera alerts. She may be in holding, but someone else was still playing her game. The next morning I drove to the courthouse early. My phone buzzed twice, first from my assistant, then from a blocked number. I ignored the second. I already knew it was her. In the office, files were waiting, thick ones. My assistant slid them across the desk. She's been reported 6 times in the last 2 years. 4 families moved out. 1 couple filed a lawsuit, dropped it after a settlement. I opened the first folder. Pictures, fines, HOA letters written in all caps red ink, always unsigned, always aggressive. She used HOA power like a weapon. And just like a weapon, she pointed it at anyone she didn't like. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text. No name, just pulling. A badge won't protect your kid. I stared at the screen for a long second, then walked to the security team's office. I want to see last night's footage. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. They pulled it up, and there it was. Someone in a dark hoodie slipping the letter under my door. Couldn't see the face, but the car they drove off in? A red Lexus. Guess who owned? Red Lexus, Carol Winters. But she was in custody overnight, wasn't she? I called the station. You release Carol Winters? No, sir, but someone posted her bail around 1:30 a.m. Who? There was a pause. It was paid in cash, dropped off by a man in a suit. Said he was from HOA legal counsel. No ID. Of course, I sat back, in my chair, piecing it together. Carol wasn't the queen of this board. She was a pawn. And whoever bailed her out, that's who I needed to find, because now it wasn't just about threats, property, or HOA letters. Someone was coming after my family. Quietly. And that's when I decided. Quiet wasn't how I was going to respond. I pulled my son out of school that afternoon. Didn't say much, just told him we were going somewhere safer for a bit. He didn't ask questions. He trusted me. That made it worse. We drove to a cabin 2 hours outside the city. My buddy Joe, retired ranger, let me borrow it any time I needed. No neighbors, no cameras, no HOA, just woods and quiet. Before leaving town, I made one stop, county records. Pull every HOA registration in Meadowbrook. I want board names, amendments, land splits, everything. The clerk raised an eyebrow. That's a lot of paper. I nodded. Print it anyway. While they ran the files, I got a call from the DA's office. You might want to sit down. I'm already mad. That counts. Carol isn't just some angry neighbor. She's connected. Her brother-in-law's a state judge. Her cousin owns a private security firm that contracts with the county. And get this, she helped push a change in zoning laws 2 years ago that gave the HOA control over a public access road. My hand clenched the phone tighter. They've been, hiding behind the HOA charter to expand their power. Exactly. And guess what they want next? The land behind your property, that old wooded area, they're trying to get it rezoned for development. I felt a chill that wasn't from the weather. That land used to be protected, the same place my son played when he was little. They were after more than just rules and fences. They were swallowing up the whole neighborhood, one violation at a time. I thanked him and hung up. The files were ready. I loaded them into the back seat and took off. But halfway up the mountain road, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. A black SUV, tinted windows, no plates. It followed me for 10 miles. Never passed. Never got too close. Just watched. I didn't stop. Didn't turn, but I knew one thing for sure. They weren't done, and neither was I. By the time we reached the cabin, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the gravel driveway. My son sat quietly, gripping his white cane, head tilted, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. "You okay, bud?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He nodded slowly. "Someone followed us." I froze. "How do you know?" "I heard the same engine sound 3 times today. It stops when we stop." My blood went cold. Even blind, he noticed the danger I thought I was hiding. That wasn't just observation. It was instinct. I realized right then, they were underestimating the wrong family. I locked the doors, checked the windows, and pulled out the files. Carol Winters wasn't the root. She was the shadow cast by something bigger. A name popped up again and again in the HOA paperwork, M. Hartford. Not on the board, not in the newsletters, but he'd signed every land amendment, every fine increase, even the HOA security contract. Quietly, legally, powerfully. I made a call to a contact in D.C., someone I hadn't spoken to since a case 5 years ago. "I need everything on a man named Matthew Hartford. Fast." He replied, "You finally poked the wrong beehive, huh?" "No, they poked mine." That night, while my son slept on the couch, I stayed up flipping pages. And then I saw it, one paragraph buried deep in the HOA charter, Clause 9b. In the event of continuous community disruption, HOA security personnel are permitted to issue private citations and enforce temporary removals until the next board review. They wrote themselves a license to exile people. Without court, without vote, just removal. Suddenly, it all made sense. The gun, the threats, the bail. They weren't just trying to scare me, they were pushing me out. Because I owned land they couldn't touch, unless I left voluntarily. And right then, headlights flashed through the window. Someone was outside. I stood slowly, heart steady. They thought I was hiding. They didn't know. I brought the fight with me. I stepped out onto the porch, cold wind brushing my face, hand resting on the sidearm tucked under my jacket. The black SUV was parked just beyond the tree. Line, engine off, lights dimmed like it was waiting for me to flinch first. I didn't. "Come out," I said, voice flat, "or I'll drag you out." For a second, nothing. Then the driver's door opened. A man in a suit stepped out, tall, clean-cut, like he belonged behind a desk, not in the woods at midnight. He didn't say a word, just held up a folded piece of paper and tossed it toward me. It landed at my feet. I didn't look down. "You think I'm gonna read your little threat and walk away?" I asked. "No," he said quietly. "We think you'll stay just long enough to lose everything." He turned to walk away. "You tell Hartford this isn't over," I said. He paused. "Mr. Hartford doesn't need to hear from you. He already knows." Then he got back in the SUV and drove off. Inside the cabin, I unfolded the paper. It was another HOA citation, only this time it wasn't for property violation. It was a community threat notice, stamped, signed, dated, with one line at the bottom. "Eviction recommended, vote scheduled." They were staging a vote to remove me from my own property, in a town where I held the law. But I smiled, because they just made their final mistake, leaving paper trails, ones I could trace, document, and burn their whole operation with. I woke my son gently. "Time to go," he asked. "Time to finish." "Do ya?" I said. Back in the truck, I made 2 calls. First to the state attorney's office, second to a woman named Grace, an old friend who ran an investigative news site. She hated corruption, and she owed me a favor. "Grace," I said, "you still like burying people with the truth?" She laughed. "Who we digging up?" "His name's Hartford. And it's time the whole country saw what HOA power looks like when it's abused. Because now it wasn't just about protecting my land. It was about exposing theirs." We drove straight into town the next morning. I didn't bother hiding. If they wanted a public war, I'd give them one. With cameras, with witnesses, and with every legal weapon in my arsenal. I pulled up right outside the HOA office. The building looked quiet from the front, But I knew behind those tinted windows they were watching. I handed my son his cane. "Stay close to me. They won't try anything stupid if people are watching." He nodded. "Even if they do, I'll hear it." We walked inside. Receptionist didn't even look up, probably told not to engage. I placed a thick binder on the desk, every false citation, every illegal document, and 3 signed affidavits from neighbors who'd been bullied off their property. "Get your president," I said. She blinked, hesitated, then made the call. Carol showed up 5 minutes later, sunglasses on indoors, fake calm smile plastered across her face. "You're not supposed to be here." "I'm not supposed to be standing in my own living room with a gun pointed at my blind kid either," I said. Her smile twitched. I slid the security footage across the desk. "That's your voice on tape. That's your cousin's private cop waving a gun. And that's your SUV parked 3 houses down 2 nights in a row." She tried to play it cool. "You can't prove it's—" I cut her off. "You think I came here without backup?" The office door opened again. Grace stepped in with her crew, cameras rolling. Mic clipped. Live feed already streaming. "Carol Winters," Grace said. "We're here to ask you about fraudulent HOA enforcement, armed intimidation, and your connection to Matthew Hartford. Would you like to comment?" Carol's face drained of color. "You're being filmed," I said quietly. "So if you're going to lie, now's the time." She backed up, mumbling something about legal counsel, then rushed out of the room. Good, because the trap was already set. I looked at the receptionist. "Make sure she knows the real vote's already been cast. In court. I filed charges this morning, civil and criminal. You'll all be served." As we walked out, I heard shouting in the back offices. Someone slammed a door. The whole place was cracking. Outside, my son turned to me. "Is it over?" I smiled for the first time in days. Not yet. I still had one more meeting. With Mr. Hartford himself. The courthouse was silent as I walked through its halls, every step echoing like a warning shot. I'd been here 1,000 times in my career, arguing cases, putting criminals behind bars. But this time was different. This time, the name on the docket wasn't just a defendant. It was a puppet master, Matthew Hartford. He sat alone in the conference room, calm as ever. Expensive suit, polished shoes, sipping coffee like nothing could touch him. "You made it personal," I said, closing the door behind me. He didn't look up. "You made it messy. That's worse." I dropped the binder on the table, the same one from the HOA office, but now with court seals stamped across the front. "You used HOA bylaws to fake removals. You funneled money through shell contracts, and you sent armed men to enforce them." He finally looked at me, smirking. "What are you hoping for? A confession? I don't do small talk with prosecutors pretending to be heroes." I leaned in. "I don't need your confession. I already have the paper trail, the footage, and the whistleblowers. I just came to see your face before it airs on every news network tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "You really think anyone cares?" "They'll care when they see how many families lost their homes, when they see a blind kid get a gun pointed at him by someone you paid, when they realize this wasn't a homeowners association, it was racketeering under a neighborhood sign." Hartford stood slowly, walked over to the window. "This country doesn't care about truth. It cares about control, and people like me know how to keep it." I walked to the door, turned back once. "You're wrong. This country cares about freedom, property, family, and I'm all 3. Before I could step out, he said something that stopped me cold. "This isn't the only neighborhood I built." That one sentence changed everything. This wasn't just about me, or my son, or Carol. Hartford had done this in other states, other cities, maybe even other names. He was running an empire built on fear and fake authority. But he'd made a mistake. He let one family fight back. And now I wasn't going to stop until every brick of that empire came crashing down. That night, I sat in my living room, the glow from the TV casting shadows on the walls. Grace's report was live, her voice steady, her words sharp as knives cutting through the lies. And what started as a simple HOA dispute has exploded into a multi-state investigation into fraudulent evictions, armed intimidation, and corruption, reaching the highest levels of local government, she said, showing the footage of Carol Winters yelling orders, the gun, and the black SUV lurking near my home. My son sat beside me, fingers tracing the edges of his cane, eyes wide, but calm. He leaned closer. Did we win? I looked at him, heart swelling. Not just yet, but we're on our way. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered. Mr. Chief Prosecutor, a cold voice whispered. You've stirred a hornet's nest. Be careful who you trust. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I exchanged a glance with my son. This fight was far from over, but we weren't backing down. Because protecting our home was more than law, it was legacy. And some battles don't end until justice is served. Weeks later, just when I thought we were gaining ground, an unexpected knock shattered the calm. At the door stood a man, mid-40s, worn out, eyes full of secrets and fear. I'm Jason, he said quietly. I worked for Hartford, I know everything. I motioned him inside, heart pounding. This was the break I didn't know I needed. Jason spilled the truth. Shell companies, fake HOA boards, threats disguised as community standards, all designed to squeeze families out and line Hartford's pockets. But why come to me? I asked. Because I can't live with it anymore. And I know you're the only one who can stop him. That night, as my son slept peacefully, Jason and I mapped out the evidence, ready to expose the entire network. It wasn't just about a neighborhood anymore. It was about taking down a system built on fear, lies, and stolen homes. And this time, Hartford wouldn't see it coming.